I heard your talk about the nadi, about the nadis, the what do you call it? The leaf nadis, that
Okay, the nadi leaf, yeah.
nadi leaf. So, is there any experience connected to that with Gurudev?
There was a direct descendant of Shukadeva who was living in Bangalore, who was doing nadi readings. And Gurudev spent time with one of them who was a siddha who could do these readings, and he passed away. But his son took over. And Gurudev said it would be a good experience for you to go and get your nadi read. And I went, and it was quite amazing. They had, he went through my whole life. He knew my mother's name, my father, written in this small palm leaf. Perhaps you've done that.
Yes.
And I remember coming back to the ashram and telling Gurudev the whole experience that I, did that. And, he was well acquainted with the whole phenomenon. But he said to me, that was written thousands of years ago, that palm leaf, and that the master would have their students sit and go deep into meditation. And he would tell them, the master, that I want you as an exercise to go in consciousness and project into the future and see what's happening in specific people's lives and then record that. And that's where those nadi readings came from. They're actually students who were studying Vedic astrology, but they were also going deep into the path of pure consciousness. And they would go in meditation and then they would record these things. So based on the students' level of pure consciousness, that's how clear those nadi prikshas are, those nadi readings. And if the student has distortions in their nervous system, well, then those readings are not very accurate. If the student was clear, so Gurudev said, it's not about going and following something and getting advice from somebody. It's really about looking at how amazing the consciousness is and the phenomenon that somebody could go inward and see 2, 3, 4, 5,000 years in the future and predict that. And I think Gurudev is doing the same work with us. We're not going in and recording somebody's life on a palm leaf, but I think that's the whole purpose with all these outreach that we're doing and all these mega courses. Can you take a sankalpa and can you be clear? Can you make that manifest? I think that's a similar exercise. How clear is your awareness? Can you make these things manifest in your life?
John, were you also part of Danda course? Few teachers mentioned about it.
Yeah, that would have been my very first silence course. And it was 10 days of silence. And we had been given, you would, maybe by day 3 or 4 of the silence course, it was an initiation. You got called up to see Gurudev, and he would give you a danda, a stick, and then give you personal instruction how to use the danda. And then we did hollow and empty, but we did hollow and empty with the danda. And it had to be with you all the time. If you went to the toilet, you had to take it, but keep it right outside the door. That's the only time you let go of it. When you slept, it was right by your bed. When you were eating, it was right next to you. So you and the danda were one. And then you held it in your hands when you meditated. And that danda became electrifying. It was alive when you meditated. It had a vibration. It was very, very powerful. And when Gurudev came back to the United States, we had a silence course. And I was hoping that we would do the dandas again, but we didn't. And I went to a lumber store and I bought these dowels, red, round pieces of wood that would be perfect dandas for the course. And I took some sandpaper and I sanded all the dandas so that they would be smooth and really pleasant to hold. And then I took one danda and I sprayed it with gold paint so that would be Gurudev's danda. And when I did all of this, I felt as though when I was sanding all the dandas and there would be knots in the wood, I felt like I was purifying everybody's nervous system. Like I was taking on their stress and clearing their stress. And I brought them to the course, and Gurudev looked at all the dandas and he said, "Ooh," he said, "you already did all the work and you already purified everybody's nervous system." I didn't say a word to him about that. And then he took up the gold danda and he kept it by him. We never got the dandas because we only did that course once. I think there was only 3 times it was done in the world. So, but he took that gold danda. And I remember at the end of the course, people would come for darshan, and he would use the danda to like either tap people in the heart or in between the eyebrows or the top of the head. And that danda still exists in Jeff Houck's house. It's still there.
Ooh,
He
wow.
didn't throw it away.
Wow. So also there were different kriyas, or the kriyas were like standard for a certain time?
When I first took my course, there was no Kriya recording. Gurudev did it live. And my course, we did Sudarshan Kriya for 2.5 hours. Can you imagine?
You mentioned it. Yes.
And then he started recording the Kriya, and the screaming and yelling was very intense on those. And you would have Kriya tapes with like so much noise. And then eventually, it got refined as time. And there was one time he had a Kriya tape. We make the sound during Kriya, but he also had us make some other sounds. And it was a short tape. It was only 10 minutes. And I remember I was teaching a corporate course for the Indian Air Force. And somehow I got security clearance to go and teach this course, but they gave us so little time. I think we had an hour and a half for a session 3 days in a row. And Gurudev said, just teach it. And he said, use this Kriya tape because it's much shorter, only 10 minutes. And he gave it to me at satsang. And when I went to my room, I could not find the tape. It's like he gave it to me and I went upstairs and I said, Gurudev, I lost the tape you gave me. And then he just picked it up and I had left it on the floor right in front of him. I must have got distracted, and like, be careful. So, and it was, of course, in 10 minutes, and they did a 2-hour Kriya. I don't know where that recording is anymore.
So you gave it back to Gurudev?
I had to give it back at the end. Absolutely. It wasn't something I could keep.
Yeah. Wonderful. And I think when the online courses started, we all had this doubt how these online Sudarshan Kriya will work. We never had this thought. And people are getting similar experiences. They are getting such a beautiful experience even in the online Sudarshan Kriya module that we are teaching to people.
And with the trucks beeping their horns in the background and the dogs barking and all that.
So is there a story about Beatles with Gurudev? That is one question.
Yeah. We picked up Gurudev in Los Angeles, and we went to a television station for an interview. And then he was going up to Santa Barbara. And it was just on the way, I asked him, Gurudev, would you like to come to my house? I had this small apartment in Santa Monica, California. And when he came to my house, somebody made some food, and we sat around and had food. And I asked him, Gurudev, would you like to listen to the Beatles? And he said, yes. In fact, there was a picture that I would keep on my coffee table of Maharishi with the Beatles. And he looked at the picture, and he said, who are these people? I said, they were the Beatles. And the photograph was taken in Rishikesh. And he looked at me and he goes, no, 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 no. This photo was not taken in Rishikesh. We don't have these flowers and we don't have these fruits in India. This was taken in London. And I had bought the photo at a Beatles festival, thinking I had some prized possession from India. And here's my guru changing everything for me. And when I asked him if he wanted to listen to the Beatles music, he said yes. And I had record albums in those days. And I went to my record collection. I took all the albums out, and I was sitting on the floor choosing which song I wanted him to listen to. And Gurudev got off of the sofa and he sat down on the floor, and then he lied down on his stomach, put his hands on his, holding up his face, his elbows on the floor. And he was just sitting next to me, looking at all my Beatles records. And if you could imagine what it would be like to have the manifestation of the ultimate best friend, that's who Gurudev became in that moment. Just the intimacy and the playfulness and the interest. I mean, what interest does he have in the Beatles? Maybe he did, but there he was lying on the floor, sitting next to me, looking at my Beatles records. And I showed him the cover of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. If you're familiar with that record, there are the Beatles, and they're at a funeral, and there's Sgt. Pepper's. They're dressed in the Sgt. Pepper's outfit, and there's all these different wax figures and photographs of different people. It's a very beautiful, most famous rock and roll album cover. And there's several saints that are on the album cover. And I looked at Gurudev and I said, can you find the saints in the album cover? And immediately he just goes, there's Paramahansa Yogananda and there's Sri Yukteswar. And he could just, not only could he find the saints on the album cover, but he explained the whole symbolism of the album cover and why they chose these colors and why they chose these people. And like he was a Beatle historian at the moment. And he explained it from a very mystical perspective, what the symbolism of the Sgt. Pepper's album cover was. And then we listened to Beatles music. And one of the songs I chose to play was Across the Universe, which is on Sgt. Pepper's, where the Beatles are singing Jai Gurudev, Jai Gurudeva Om. And he heard that for the very first time. In fact, he had never heard the Beatles before. And when he heard that, he says, oh, listen what they're singing, Jai Gurudev. And it was just such a sweet, sweet, sweet moment.
There are so many teachers and volunteers who are watching this, Michael. What would you like to share with them? And so many will watch maybe after 100 years also. Who knows?
100 years. Oh my gosh. I would just say, just know you're special. And don't have that feeling that, oh, I wish I was there at that time and I missed some special time. Every time is special. And as a devotee, just take full advantage of the glorious moment that we're living in. If there's a course that Gurudev is teaching, run and take that course. Be the first one to take that course. If you have an opportunity to spend time around him, run, spend that time around him. Don't create some concept in your mind that says, oh no, this is not for me. I don't have the money. I can't get the time. Just spend as much possible time as you can with him. And once you have that intention, once you have that desire, you'll see magic will happen. Those things will, all the obstacles will melt away and you'll get that opportunity to be with him. And if for some reason you don't get to physically be with him, it doesn't really matter anyway. You know, whatever you're supposed to experience in this lifetime, you're going to experience that in this lifetime. But definitely aim for the highest. And lovely to spend time with everybody.
Very true, and that has been my experience also, Michael. If Gurudev is there right in front of you now, how would you like to express this love and gratefulness towards him?
I don't think I could express anything.
And Michael, what is Gurudev for you?
What is?
Gurudev for you.
You know, in the beginning, Gurudev was somebody who liked me more than anybody else liked me. And then he became my best friend. Then he became my personal guide. All of that has changed. Now he is just the embodiment of knowledge, compassion, wisdom, love. He is just like a spiritual vortex. And yeah, he's just the focal point of transformation. And I'm very much attracted to the knowledge aspect of what Gurudev shares with us. And what I find is incredible is when he says something, shares knowledge, he's able to take us to the experience itself. So maybe this experience hasn't fully stabilized in us. We're not living that exalted state of consciousness yet. But in the moment when he shares some wisdom, not only do you understand it intellectually you get maybe this much, but experientially you get to have that experience. Yeah. And I don't know, how do you put words into all of this? It's mind-blowing, you know? And I thought that this was an experience I could only have with him in person. But when he did the Bhakti Sutras recently online, it was as deep as doing it in person. So I think there's no boundaries. Maybe in the beginning there were boundaries around Gurudev. He could only do so much. But he's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and more, really more and more powerful, the way he's able to transmit all of this. So I don't know how to explain it.
Maybe he's unveiling himself slowly for whenever the word is ready, he's unveiling his limitlessness.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I don't think we were ready for all of that in the beginning, and now maybe we're more ready.
Having all the power, he still took all the human steps. From that, Michael, I remember. So, my Gurudev, we were in Rishikesh, just immediately after WCF. And he took us to Chaurasi Kutia. Where, our Rishikesh ashram, exactly opposite that, it's Chaurasi Kutia, Maharshi's Chaurasi Kutia is there. So they had just started ticketed entry. So Gurudev went there with the ticket after a long time. Yeah. And
oh, it's owned by the government now.
Is it?
You said ticketed entry.
So I don't know who opened the ticket, but it was a ticketed entry. Like when we went, also Gurudev asked, "Did you take the ticket? Did you buy the ticket?" Because a lot of people suddenly came. No, they might not been prepared for it. Uh, so we took the ticket and we went, and Gurudev was showing, for the little time he was there, helping Maharshi. So, I used to be here. Here we used to have some fun. And from here, I used to sneak out in the night to go and roam in the jungle to test my siddhis. He just had got those siddhis of being, mm, nobody can be violent around him. And so he used to go. He said, I just once went in the search of the tiger or the lion just to test my siddhi. So he was just sharing all that. So he showed us a Beatles poster when you shared the Beatles story. No? So then he was telling us about the Beatles. And then there was a room where it was like Maharshi's meeting room. And on top of that, there was another room where Gurudev used to live. So he took us there and said, here I used to live. And so just outside, like there was a balcony. You know balcony, right? Uh, yeah. So just out, there was a balcony in the first floor. So he showed us there was a slope like this outside balcony. The roof slope was very adjacent to balcony. He said, I used to rest here and look at the moon. So then he said, once I was resting here and I was looking at the moon, I closed my eyes and suddenly I had a dream that I am sitting up the opposite to the bank, this Chaurasi Kutia opposite to the river Ganga, the other side of the bank, the river, and I saw that this whole place is just ruins and remains. Like in Hindi, we call it khandar. So he said, "मुझे लगा कि ये पूरा खंडर हो गया." That means this was all like a ruined place, and that was the time when Maharshi was there. So it was all in its glory. So he said, "I just opened my eyes in shock, and I felt." I'm sure he must have shared it with you.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah. So like then we were in the night sitting. He said, yeah, it was just like that. I was sitting with few of you and see that's how it is. So I was.
Yeah. I've heard him tell that story in Rishikesh.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Would that have been at World Culture Festival, Silver Jubilee? No, what Silver Jubilee? I think it was World Culture Festival.
The recent World Culture Festival?
No, it would have been during the Silver Jubilee period when we were in Bangalore. So after that whole event was over, we went to Rishikesh with Gurudev. That's when he started the blessing course. And we would do the blessing course, and Gurudev would come to the course where he's not supposed to come at all because you're supposed to feel the presence without him. But he came a few times. And then in the evening, you're not supposed to go to his house and see him, but we would go to his house and he would let us in. And I think we were across the river looking at Maharishi's ashram, and he told us that story, that he would be over there and he had the experience of looking across the river. The same story.
So while driving back from the Chaurasi Kutia, I was in his car and he asked her to sing. I could not sing, so none of us could sing. We were not singers, so we were just mentioning the wording of the song to him. And then I said, Gurudev, I want to ask you something. See, my father is a industrialist, so I come from a business background. I also had my business. So what? I said, Maharshi was such a great man, but now my generation don't know about.
Hmm.
Like we got to know about Maharshi because of Gurudev, right? I mean, then Gurudev justified, no, 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 they have such a good presence. He made the meditation so popular around the world. Gurudev in India, though I have never heard. He said,
Right.
no, in US and other places, no, in the Western, they still have a very good presence.
Hmm.
I said, okay, Gurudev, but such a brilliant man. Even a normal industrialist also he thinks of the succession plan and a proper succession plan, not like announcing somebody as successor, but like a proper succession plan. Uh, don't you think that he should have done something like that? you know, very innocently I asked. So Gurudev said, now we are there, no? So he said that that was the need of the time that time.
Right.
This time the need was different. This time the Sudarshan Kriya and our knowledge has come up.
Hmm.
And so then I thought the succession plan of the enlightened masters need not be from the same organization.
Yeah, if Gurudev would have stayed in TM, you wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't be here because it was so structured that only if you were a TM teacher and you were a high level TM teacher, you had access to Maharishi. Other people didn't have access to Maharishi. And although in the beginning the devotion was very much part of the whole process, but it became very scientific and very dry. And you could not learn Guru Puja. It's the same Guru Puja. It's Maharishi's Guru Puja, that whole thing. But you couldn't learn it unless you were going through teacher training. You didn't have a way to express the devotion in TM. And so I think Gurudev left Maharishi for all of us so that we would have an opportunity to serve and we would have an opportunity to grow. And did you ever watch the video of Guru Purnima 1990?
No.
I have it. I can put it on a link for you to
Please.
watch. And
No.
he talks about Sariputra, who is a devotee of the Buddha. And that Buddha, he attained some level of awareness. And then Buddha asked him to leave and to go all around China and that area to spread Buddhism. And probably you've noticed this before, Gurudev will speak in the first person when he's talking about another saint. He'll say, I felt this or I thought that. And you wonder, oh, is Gurudev talking about himself? Or even when he talks about Krishna, he'll talk about, I said this. Or anyway, so he's talking about the story of Sariputra, and he says, I did not want to leave. I was at the feet of the master. I just wanted to stay at the feet of the master. I did not want to leave. And nowadays, once in a while, you'll hear him tell a story about Maharishi. But in the early days, the longing that Gurudev had for Maharishi was really very, very strong. He would have a picture, not that he carried the picture, but devotees would put a picture of Maharishi by his bedside. He would have a picture of Brahmananda Saraswati near him. He had a little kit where he traveled with, a puja kit. It came in a box. Maybe we still sell that now, but it was the original one that Banu made for him. It would open up and there was a picture of Brahmananda Saraswati or the Parampara, and all the silver things were in there. He would do Guru Puja every day. And very much that connection was there. When Maharishi died, I must have gotten 6 missed calls with I think Gurudev was not in India. He was in Malaysia at the time, somewhere. I got 6 missed calls with an international phone number. I had no idea who it was. And then finally, Gurudev calls me on the phone, and he said that Maharishi passed, and I'm thinking of going to the funeral, and should I go to the funeral? And well, he's asking me what he should do. Like, I'm going to tell him what he should do. And he didn't know what to do with the funeral. Should he go? Should he not? Because he had a big program to go to, and he didn't want to cancel the program. Then he called John Osborne. Then he called Jeff Houck. Maybe because we all come from the TM background, he felt as though he could talk to us about this. And then they changed the date of Maharishi's funeral. They pushed it forward like 3-4 days, which gave him enough time to go. And then he calls back and he says, they changed the date. I'm going to the funeral. What do you think? I think I should go to the funeral. And then we got a little intelligent, the three of us, and we called Gurudev on a little conference call to talk about it. And our intention was, can we come with you? You know, so we couldn't go, but immediately after the funeral, like he must have just got out of the car. He wound up calling me. And he told me all about the funeral. I'm sure you must have heard the stories that he was there. And it was the ghee from our ashram that was poured on Maharishi's body, especially the head. And when they burnt the body, it was our ghee that was being used. And he spoke about the funeral. And, you know, the funeral was a big national funeral or state funeral. It was Gurudev's connection to the minister, and that such a big funeral could happen. And he spoke about it with the enthusiasm that you or I would speak about a project that we did for the Guru, for our Gurudev. He was talking about it as though it was his last act of seva for Maharishi. And he was like a little kid. And when he talked about the ghee and, you know, the procession that happened and all that he could do for that, it was like the love and I would say Gurudev is the greatest devotee of anybody. You know, it's like we feel the devotion. Yeah, can you imagine the devotion he feels? And I mean, I just was on the phone with him for 45 minutes where all he did was the talking, but it would be the same talking you or I would tell a friend who was excited about some project that you did that was super successful. It was so interesting to see that, you know, and yeah.
Michael, there were many teachers, they gave a references and they told stories that Gurudev might be reincarnation of Krishna, definitely many people say it, but reincarnation of Brahmanand Saraswati ji, like the same.
Yeah, this is okay to share this story if you want.
Okay.
We went to the Kumbh Mela that happened in, where does the Kumbh Mela happen? In
Once in 12 years, it happens in different 4 areas. So,
yeah, what year was this? This would have been 2012, 2014.
okay.
And Allahabad. This was the Kumbh Mela that happened in Allahabad. And Allahabad was where Maharishi spent a lot of time. He went to the University of Allahabad. And we were, in our travels with Gurudev, we stayed in a home where there was this very wealthy man who had this palatial home that was now an Art of Living center. And his Upanayam was done by Brahmananda Saraswati. And Brahmananda Saraswati would come through and stay at his house. And he became a devotee of Maharishi. And Maharishi would pass through and he would stay at his house. And the Kumbh Mela that we went to, the very last day of the Kumbh Mela, there was a rainstorm. And our tent got destroyed and we had to quickly leave. And we were all wet and from the rain. And we went to this man's house. And Gurudev changed his clothes and dried, and they prepared a hot meal for us. And so while we were eating the meal, I had some time with this man to talk to him. And I said to him, I have one question for you. Could you tell me? He didn't even let me answer the question. I never asked the question. I just said, could you tell me? And he looked at me and he goes, absolutely. There is no doubt that our Gurudev is Brahmananda Saraswati. He said he moves like Brahmananda Saraswati. He eats like Brahmananda Saraswati. How he does his satsang is the same exact style of his. And he says, I've spent time with both of them. And I could tell you there is no difference between the two of them. So I thought that was really something fascinating.
Thanks a lot, Michael, for your time. And we heard so many beautiful stories. You took us to time in the 80s and 90s, and even till the WCF time, some recent times also you shared. So this was all wonderful to listen from you, and it was very moving, it kindled the devotion, and it was so much inspiring and good experience for all of us to learn also. Thank you, Michael, for your time. Jai Gurudev.
Thanks. Great to be here with everybody.